Okay, so I mentioned scope. We're going to take a look at that shortly with all of these 4 files. I think I've still got 1 or 2 things to do. I really want to handle this result. I'm going to have a function to handle that result. I will explain that shortly, but I am still looking for anywhere where I have not managed to reduce anything. I think I'm fine. So let's take a look at this here. What we've got is if the result is true, we're going to set it to success and then say that the data was added to the database. Else we're going to say that the success was fail and the data was rejected. And we've seen that we can have here message added and message rejected. But that again is the same in both files. It lives in that one and it lives in that one. So it would be nice if I could sort of take that piece of code out and put it all together in one file as a function. So I'm going to do that in library. And the way we're going to do that is by declaring another function. Function, I don't know, db result status, because that's what it really is. It's whatever the result is, we're seeing whether we can write to the database or whether we can't. So I'm going to take this code, which is what I need. Let's cut it from there all together and put it in my function. Let's tidy this up a little bit. It all goes a bit bananas, but it does. So, back. So I've taken the code, I've cut the code from there. I need to cut it out from here and replace it with a function call. Let's handle this one first. So what I need in here, because it's self-contained, it doesn't know about the value for result. So I'm actually going to have to pass that in to the status. So if I have the result, that's fine. But I'm also going to have to pass in, because it's got no idea what message is, I'm also going to have to pass that in for it to work. So if I pass in my array message, I know it's declared up here, but this is self-contained and I need to know what it is. So that is actually that is finished. So I'm checking for the result. If it's successful, that's going to be a 1, and we're going to have the message added. But if you sort of remember now how we do this, we're going to use this JSON message rather than have the 2 separate lines. So I'm going to cut that from there, and this is going to be 1 with added. So paste that in there. That one needs to be 1. That needs to be added. We're going to be doing the same down here for rejected. So if I copy that, paste over those lines, keyboard's in the way. That one's going to be a 0 because it's failed, and rejected. So that's really tidied that up, it's made it a bit more effective code. However, I still need to come back here and get rid of that. I'm just looking, did I highlight that or copy it? We'll soon find out. So if I cut that from there, I need to call that function and send in the details. So the function was called db result status. So all I need to do in add person is type db result status, and I need to pass in the two values, which is going to be the result of that value, so result, and I also need to pass in the message, which is MSG. So hopefully that line will work. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing in the add location. And I think we are just about there. So let's just tidy the file up. Let's take out some of these blank lines. And there we go. Much shorter. Let's put a line in there. I have this terrible feeling that I actually left off a brace somewhere. So that's add location. Let's save that. Let's go to add person. That's pretty tidy. The only thing that I'm going to say is I need to change the order of these two. Because DB uses message, it must be declared in my program before I use it. And the only way that that can happen is if lib.php is actually declared before the database. So that's the correct order. So what's going to happen when we run add person is that it's going to look in the library, it's going to find all the library routines. Okay, so it's going to find these routines, but it's also going to take this variable and have that available. So when we then go into db.php, that variable is now available to us. Okay. So I think we are pretty much there. I still have a feeling that I've got one of these missing. I'll soon find out when we run the program. Now, as I said, the functionality of the program is exactly the same, just that the coding has changed. So I'm actually going to try and run these pieces of code by adding a person and adding a location here. So first of all, let's go for adding a location. So first line of address, the world. Let's give it some latitude and longitude. Let's say 52.345. Longitude minus 1.345. There we go, and click submit. Okay, so we've made a little bit of an error. Undefined variable response on line 21, but notice that the data was successfully added to the database, and we can go and have a look at that. So if I then go and take a look at location and browse, we've got the world. Okay, so it actually added it too, so it's working. We've just got a little tidy up to do, find out what the error is there. Undefined variable response on line 21. Going back to that. Line 21. Okay. JSON code response. So I can't see what the mistake is at the moment with that. It looks okay because we're not actually changing anything apart from the fact that line shouldn't be there at all. That's what it is. I know I haven't deleted enough. There we go. Let's take that out. If you remember, what we did here was we had the if it's true if it was added or if it was rejected, we're in an if statement, and then we had an encompassing response afterwards. I just forgot to take that one out. Now that should be fine. So let's go and check it again. If you're unsure about that, rewind the video or what have you and take a look at how the code was written. So again, submit it this time. Let's put the other world, just so that we know that it's a different value. Submit. There you go. Success. The message was added to the data was added to the database. Let's try missing something out. Yeah, there we go. Latitude and longitude. Notice we're getting the correct error messages. Let's take them both out. Yeah, let's just put latitude back in. Check with that, that's fine. And one more, let's put them both in. But not put the line of the address in. That should add it to the database. Okay, that's perfect. So we now need to do the test add person. So if I change this one, let's go with an empty one. I should get an error message. There we go. First name or last name field was not completed. Again, picking up the correct message. If I have first name Joe blogs and give it a year of birth, 1266, was really old. Submit. Success, added to the database. Let's take the year of birth out, which is not necessary. It's still added to the database. We've got another Joe blogs. And if I type Joe Smith, we'll prove that that's been added. If I miss out the surname, it won't do it. Not completed. Let's put the surname back in and take out the first name. So I've got Smith. Let's put year of birth in just for fun. Submit. Yeah, last name's not completed. So we can go and take a look at the database. We can see the person table with the records that we've just added in. There you go, Joe Smith. No values, 1266. That last one was a success message. So it failed. Either the first name or the last name wasn't completed. Yeah, we haven't put the first name in. And we can have a look at location, and all the location should also have been put in. We got the other world blank. So we've drastically reduced the size of the file. Okay, we have created a couple of libraries, lib.php and db.php. We've created a couple of functions with run query and db result status. So we've also managed our messaging, JSON message. Okay, so that we've only got one line to use instead of having 3 lines for each time we try to write a JSON message. We have got all of our database information in one place. Okay, so we're still running the query, but we're returning the result back to the main program so that the main program can then process it. So that's called refactoring. We've ended up with 4 files. We only needed just one library file. Would have done, that would have been fine. But it's nicer if we separate them out into their functionalities. So everything about the database is in here. All the rest of the library routines that we're going to use will be in here. Now, a bit later on, we may separate this out into further libraries depending on how much we do, particularly when we try to get information from the database. So we might have a library which just handles things that posts information to the database, not post as in the method. And library routines that just handle what happens when it comes back. Another important part was how to set up an associative array. where we've got a key for added and the value is following it, and it's the value that we're actually printing out. So when we are here, let's see what we've got. Message. So that is looking at the array. It's looking for added, which is here, and then actually the message that is being printed out, the value is the data was added to the database. When we encode the response, which is here, we see that we actually get the value and not the key. So quite a tough thing to follow. We've made it work, it's fine. I think we've made it a lot easier for writing further files. We've got another file to add data to the database. So what we really need to do is add something into livdat and possibly something into event as well, because we've got nothing in event. So we can create a couple of files to add details into those. The livdat is going to be just a little bit different, which I'll take some time to explain how that works.